Hello and welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. Today's topic is something we don't often hear in language classes, but it's something we both believe is incredibly important, using English not just as a subject to study, but as a tool for healing.
Yeah. Because for so many people, English starts as a goal, something they want to improve for work, school, or travel. But somewhere along the way, it becomes something more personal. It becomes a space where they can feel things, name things, even process things.
And I think that shift happens when English stops being about getting it right and starts being about expression. About honesty. About giving shape to thoughts and feelings that maybe you didn't even know were sitting inside you.
There's something powerful about learning to say, I'm tired, or I feel alone, in a new language, not just to others, but even just to yourself. It's like you give yourself permission to admit things you've been holding in.
Because sometimes, your native language is wrapped up in pressure, cultural expectations, family dynamics, history. And speaking in English can create a little bit of emotional distance. Just enough to let the words come out more freely.
That's exactly it. It's not that you don't feel those things in your own language. But sometimes English gives you space, a softer landing, to process what's going on inside you without the same weight.
And when you start using English like that, to journal, to talk to yourself, to write down feelings, it changes your relationship with the language. It becomes less about performance and more about connection. With yourself, most of all.
So today, we want to explore how English can become a quiet, healing place. A space that holds your feelings instead of judging them. A space that says, you don't have to get this perfect. Just be real.
And one of the simplest ways to begin that shift is to stop thinking of English as something outside of you, like a subject you have to master, and start thinking of it as something that can live inside of you.
Something you can carry with you, like a journal in your pocket. Somewhere to go when things feel messy, or confusing, or just a bit too much.
I've spoken with learners who said they started journaling in English when they couldn't talk to anyone about what they were feeling. And the strange thing is, they didn't feel like they were writing in a second language, they felt like they were writing in safety.
Yes. Because the goal wasn't grammar. It wasn't even fluency. It was honesty. Writing, I'm scared, or I don't know what I want in English felt gentler than saying it in their native tongue. Less exposure. But still true.
And sometimes, you need that soft space. Especially when you're still learning how to express certain emotions, or when your native language is tied to a part of your life you're still healing from.
English becomes neutral ground. A fresh space where you can write what you feel, without the history that might come with your mother tongue. That distance can be a gift. It can help you hear yourself more clearly.
And it's amazing how just a few words, written in quiet moments, can start to untangle something inside. You don't need long paragraphs. Even a sentence like, I don't feel okay today, is enough.
And when you write like that often, English becomes a kind of mirror. It reflects who you are, not just your progress as a student, but your growth as a human being.
And that reflection isn't always perfect, and it doesn't need to be. Sometimes your grammar will be messy. Sometimes you won't have the exact word. But it's still you. It's still your voice showing up on the page, honestly.
And sometimes that honesty matters more than anything. Because healing doesn't require big words, it just needs space. A place to let the feelings out without rushing them, without needing to translate them into something polished.
I think that's why journaling, even for 5 minutes in the morning or at night, can become such a powerful habit. It doesn't just build your English, it builds your relationship with yourself. It creates time to check in. To breathe.
And the more you write, the more you trust the process. You stop worrying about mistakes and start noticing patterns. What thoughts keep coming up, what emotions are asking to be seen, what memories you're finally ready to name.
That's where English becomes more than language. It becomes a companion. A quiet, steady one. It's always there when you need to let something out, even when you don't want to talk to anyone else.
And over time, that quiet practice, that simple act of writing in English, teaches you how to be kinder to yourself. You learn to say, I'm doing my best, and actually believe it.
Because you're not just learning how to describe the world around you. You're learning how to understand the world inside you. That's healing. That's courage.
And it's so personal. No one else needs to see what you write. It's not for marks. It's not for social media. It's just for you. And sometimes, that's exactly what we need.
Sometimes people ask, how do I stay motivated to learn English? And I always think, maybe stop trying to stay motivated and start asking, what do I need today? If what you need is to write, then write. Let that be enough.
Exactly. Because some days, motivation disappears. But if English has become a place where you feel safe, a space where you can breathe and check in with yourself, then you'll come back to it naturally. Not out of pressure, but out of care.
And it's okay if no one understands the little notes you've written. Maybe it's something like, I miss home, or I feel behind, or even just a question like, who am I becoming? It doesn't have to make perfect sense. It just has to feel honest.
And maybe the act of putting it down in words is the healing. Not because the feeling disappears, but because it's no longer trapped in your chest. You've named it. You've faced it. That's something to be proud of.
And I think when we approach English like this, not just as a skill, but as a space, we stop judging ourselves so harshly. We stop saying, my English is bad, and start saying, I'm finding my way. And that's a gentler, more human path forward.
Because learning any language is vulnerable. It puts you face to face with your limits, your fears, your inner critic. But if you let it, it can also bring out your courage, your softness, your creativity.
It can become the place where you hear your own voice more clearly than ever before.
Not the perfect voice. Not the polished one. Just the real one, the one that says, this is how I feel today, and I'm going to say it, even if it's messy.
And I think the more you let that voice speak, on paper, in quiet thoughts, even in whispered practice, the more natural English begins to feel. It stops being something you perform, and starts being something that supports you.
It becomes part of your daily rhythm. Not just when you study, but when you think, when you reflect, when you process what's going on inside. And that's when it really starts to heal. Because it's not tied to pressure anymore.
I've spoken with learners who said English helped them say things they couldn't say in their first language, not because they didn't have the words, but because the words in their native language felt too heavy. Too close.
Yes. And English gave them some breathing room. Enough distance to explore what they felt without being pulled under. It gave them new phrases. A new tone. A kind of emotional softness.
And I think that's something really special. Because healing often needs that kind of gentle language. Something that lets you take your time. That doesn't rush you to explain, or fix, or justify, just to sit with what's real.
So if you've ever written something in English that helped you feel lighter, even if it was just a sentence, even if the grammar wasn't right, know that it still mattered. It wasn't just practice. It was an act of care.
An act of listening to yourself. Of honoring whatever was going on in your mind, in your heart. And giving it space to exist, safely, through words you're still learning how to use.
And what a beautiful thing that is. To use a new language not just to communicate, but to comfort, to calm, to heal.
So if your English journey feels slow, or messy, or emotional, maybe that's not a problem. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's where the real growth is happening.
It's okay if your sentences aren't perfect. It's okay if you forget words. What matters is that you keep showing up, for yourself, for your thoughts, for your voice.
Because you're not just learning how to speak English. You're learning how to be kind to yourself in a new way.
Thanks for spending this time with us. And wherever you are on your journey, remember, your words matter, even when they are quiet. Even when they are written in your notes, never shown to anyone else. They are still a part of your healing.
We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, be gentle with your learning, and with your heart.